children's creativity, brain science. Interesting water plants.
Hoppity hop. Mrs. Frog has been busy since this morning. It's because she has invited her friends to show off her pond. It's been a long time since she had company over.
I'm done with the cleaning and the food. So far, so good.
Mrs. Frog wiped off her sweat and was satisfied. Mrs. Frog lives in the pond, but she likes to visit here and there, so she has a lot of friends. One day, she visited the field mouse to see pretty flowers. Another day, she went on a picnic under the squirrel's tree. And once she went to the crow to listen to stories about faraway places.
Mrs. Frog, where do you live? Can we visit you at your place?
Her friends had been asking her for a long time. She had finally invited them over. Finally, the guests have arrived.
Welcome.
Mrs. Frog greeted her guests in a fancy dress.
Thank you for having us.
The field mouse, the crow, and the squirrel answered. The field mouse and the squirrel were amazed by the pond, which they had never seen before. The crow, who knew how to fly, was the only one who said, "Oh, so this is where you live." But the crow had never seen a pond in detail before. Mrs. Frog was delighted that her friends loved her place.
Let me show you around my pond.
Mrs. Frog showed her friends into a dense field of reeds around the pond. The reeds were wavering in the winds.
Wow! The reeds are splendid!
Her friends were admiring the sight when the crow added, "This looks like silvergrass."
Well, it looks like silvergrass, but it isn't. This is a reed field. Reeds only live close to water.
Mrs. Frog started explaining.
You can make brooms out of reed ears and use the fur on the ears to make clothes as warm as those made from cotton. With the long stalks, we can make hats and floor mats.
The field mouse, with his eyes wide open, asked,
Mrs. Frog, when you make a floor mat, can you give me one as a present? I need one to put on the floor in my den.
Of course,
Mrs. Frog replied with a cheery laugh. The squirrel, who was scuttling ahead of the others, asked,
Mrs. Frog, what's this plant? Its leaves smell good when rubbed together.
The field mouse and the crow also ran over to smell it.
It really does smell good.
Mrs. Frog, from behind, answered,
that plant is called a sweet flag. boil it in water, then take a bath with it. Your hair and skin will become smooth and it will smell good. Shampoo contaminates water, but the sweet flag won't. I'll give you one as a present, Mrs. Crow.
Thank you. My feathers will become shinier now. The crow was delighted with her gift.
Until now, you have seen the plants living near the water. Can you see those leaves floating in the pond? Those plants get their nutrients from the water.
Just as Mrs. Frog had said, there were small and large leaves floating on water. The squirrel and the field mouse leaned into the water to take a closer look.
This is a water hyacinth. It has these round air pouches between its leaves that allow it to float on water. These tiny roots suck in the water and nutrients. The water hyacinth also purifies the water.
Oh my! Then the water hyacinth is our water filter.
Mrs. Frog was explaining in detail about the water hyacinth when suddenly the field mouse exclaimed,
What's that? Are there plants underwater too?
The field mouse looked into the water and asked in wonder.
Of course, that's the hornwort. It takes root in the mud underwater and spends its whole life immersed in water. It would be great if you could swim so that we can go underwater to see more underwater plants.
The crow shook its head. We've seen enough wonderful things today. We can't swim like you. Moreover, I can't get my feathers wet.
Thank you for showing us your pretty water plants garden. I'm surprised to find that there are so many underwater plants.
Everyone commented on Mrs. Frog's pond.
Sniff, sniff. Huh? What's this smell?
The field mouse, with its keen nose, picked up a smell. Everyone looked at where the smell was coming from. A pretty violet flower was peeking out from its stem, sprouting out from between the round leaves on the pond.
Oh, that's the water shield.
Mrs. Frog replied. Such a nice-smelling underwater flower. And to think we have never seen it before.
I think we had only cared about things we could see plainly.
The field mouse, the squirrel, and the crow were all embarrassed to admit it.
Mrs. Frog, this was a pleasant eye-opener.
Come visit me again when the water lilies bloom.
Mrs. Frog waved goodbye at her friends.